The court has ruled. Alexei Morozov, a former police officer, was accused of raping his 18-year-old girlfriend, Sophia, and then burning her alive in the forest. The sentence? Execution. The judge asked, "Last wish?" Alexei said only one thing: "Let me see my dog Rustam." Everyone thought a murderer remembering only his pet in his final moments, but no one had any idea that this dog, this silent companion, was about to shake the walls of justice. Something was about to happen, something the court never saw nor the law imagined. A secret buried in the snow, a proof that spoke not with words, but with loyalty. This story is not just about crime, but about a war of innocence. Watch until the end, because the ending is such that it will shake your soul. And if you also believe that truth never dies, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel Wild Wonders now. Let's get to the story. In the desolate, frost-bitten expanse of snowfield, where the wind howls like a restless spirit, Alexei Morozov lives in quiet solitude. A retired police officer, his stern demeanor hides a gentle heart, one that finds solace in the loyal companionship of his dog, Rustam. The German shepherd, with soulful eyes and a coat dusted by snow, is Alexei's only constant in a life marked by isolation. His small cabin, tucked at the edge of a frozen forest, creaks under the weight of winter's grip, a mirror to the heaviness in his soul. Alexei wasn't always alone. Until recently, Sofia Petrova was the warmth in his cold world. Her laughter once filled the cabin, her presence a spark against the bleakness of snowfield. But their love, though deep, was fragile. A bitter argument shattered their bond. Words sharp as ice flew between them. Sophia, fiery and independent, felt suffocated by Alexei's protective nature. "You'll never understand me," she texted him, her words laced with frustration. Alexei, hurt and desperate, replied, "It won't be good if you leave me." The messages later found on her phone carried a weight neither could have foreseen. Days passed, and Sophia vanished. Alexei, haunted by their fight, searched snowfield's frozen trails, calling her name into the void. Rustam, sensing his master's unease, stayed close, his paws crunching through the snow. The town whispered rumors. Sophia had left him, they said, tired of his overbearing ways. But Alexei couldn't accept it. She wouldn't just disappear. Then a grim discovery shattered the quiet. In the heart of the forest, where pines stood like silent sentinels, a burned body was found, charred beyond recognition. The police, using dental records and DNA, confirmed the unthinkable. It was Sophia. The town turned on Alexei. Those text messages, once private, became damning evidence. "It won't be good if you leave me," they quoted, painting him as a man unhinged by rejection. Alexei, devastated, swore he'd never harm her, but the evidence was unrelenting. As the trial loomed, Rustam's mournful howls echoed through snowfield, as if he too sensed the noose tightening around his master's neck. The air in Snowfield's small courthouse was thick with grief and rage. The wooden benches packed with townsfolk whispering accusations. Alexei Morozov sat in the dock, his weathered hands clasped tightly, eyes fixed on the floor. Rustam, barred from the courtroom, waited outside, his low whines barely audible through the heavy doors. The weight of Sophia's death pressed down on everyone, but none more than Ivan Mikhailov, Sophia's father. His face, etched with anguish, twisted as he stood before the police, his voice trembling with conviction. "Alexei is the killer," he roared, pointing at the man he once welcomed into his home. "He couldn't let her go. He took my daughter from me." Investigating Officer Yuri Belov, a methodical man with a cold edge, took the stand, laying out the case with surgical precision. He presented the damning text messages, their words projected on a screen for all to see. Sophia's desperate, "You'll never understand me," and Alexei's ominous, "It won't be good if you leave me." Then came the physical evidence, a hunting rifle registered to Alexei, found near the forest with traces of accelerant used to burn Sophia's body. Yuri testified that Alexei was spotted in the forest the day Sophia vanished, claiming he was hunting deer. A convenient alibi, Yuri sneered, for a man who knew those woods better than anyone. The courtroom buzzed, the pieces of the puzzle forming a chilling picture. Alexei's defense was feeble. He admitted to the argument, to the texts, to being in the forest, but swore he loved Sophia, that he'd never harm her. His voice cracked, but the jury's eyes were hard, swayed by Ivan's tears and Yuri's relentless evidence. Judge Anton Sokolov, a man known for his fairness, seemed to age as the trial wore on. The courtroom fell silent as he delivered the verdict, his voice heavy with sorrow. "Alexei Morozov, for the murder of Sophia Petrova, you are sentenced to death." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Alexei's head bowed, his world collapsing, while outside, Rustam's howls grew louder, as if pleading for the truth no one else could hear. The cell where Alexei Morozov awaited his fate was a cold, gray tomb, its silence broken only by the distant drip of a leaking pipe. His death sentence hung over him like a storm cloud, but his thoughts were not of himself. They were of Rustam, his loyal companion who had been his anchor through every hardship. With his execution looming, Alexei made a single humble request to the prison warden. "Please," he whispered, his voice raw, "let me see Rustam one last time." The warden, moved by the broken man before him, granted the last wish, arranging for the meeting in a small, snow-dusted courtyard outside the prison. Rustam bounded toward Alexei the moment he saw him, his fur matted from days of restless waiting. The German shepherd's eyes, full of unwavering devotion, locked onto his master's. Alexei knelt, burying his face in Rustam's fur, the warmth of the dog a fleeting reprieve from the cold reality of his fate. Tears streamed down his face as he whispered, "I am innocent, Rustam. If you can do something, do it." His words were a desperate plea, not to the world, but to the one being who had never doubted him. Rustam licked his trembling hands, a silent vow before a strange urgency seemed to seize him. With a sudden burst of energy, the dog broke free from the guard's loose grip and bolted towards the prison gate, slipping through a gap and vanishing into the swirling snow beyond. The forest outside Snowfield was a labyrinth of ice and shadow, now battered by a fierce snowstorm. Rustam, driven by an instinct no human could fathom, tore through the drifts, his paws bleeding as he navigated the frozen terrain. He moved with purpose, as if guided by Alexei's whispered words. Hours passed, the storm unrelenting, until Rustam stopped at a clearing deep in the woods, near where Sophia's body had been found. His nose twitched, then he began to dig frantically, snow and dirt flying. Beneath the frozen earth, he uncovered a buried plastic bottle, its contents reeking of chemicals. Nearby, he pawed at a tangle of roots, revealing used condoms and, most crucially, a small memory card, half buried in the muck. Rustam's low growl echoed through the trees, as if he knew he'd found the truth his master so desperately needed. The dawn broke over Snowfield with a brittle, icy light, the town still reeling from Alexei Morozov's death sentence. Outside the courthouse, where the final appeal hearing was set to begin, a commotion stirred the frosty air. Rustam, his fur caked with snow and mud, stood barking furiously at Judge Anton Sokolov's car as it pulled into the lot. His eyes blazed with an almost human intensity, his growls cutting through the morning chill. The judge, stepping out, froze at the sight of the German shepherd, whose relentless barks seemed to carry a message. "What is this?" Anton muttered, his curiosity piqued. Recognizing Rustem as Alexei's dog, he ordered the bailiff, "Bring that dog into the courtroom. Let's see what this is about." Inside, the courtroom buzzed with confusion as Rustem was led in, a plastic bag clutched gently in his jaws. Alexei, shackled and pale, rose from his seat, his voice steady despite the weight of his fate. "He brought me evidence," he said, locking eyes with the judge. "Rustem found something. Send him with an officer. He'll show where he got it." The gallery murmured, some scoffing at the absurdity, others intrigued by the dog's unyielding determination. Judge Anton, sensing something extraordinary, nodded. "Officer Belov, take a team and follow the dog. Let's see where this leads." Detective Yuri Belov, skeptical but duty-bound, assembled 5 policemen and followed Rustem into the biting cold. The dog, undeterred by the snowstorm's remnants, led them with purpose, his paws crunching through the forest's frozen crust. The men struggled to keep pace as Rustem navigated the labyrinthine pines, his breath steaming in the air. After nearly an hour, he stopped at a clearing, the same spot where Sofia's body had been found. Rustem pawed at the ground, revealing the exact place where he'd unearthed the plastic bottle, used condoms, and the memory card the night before. Yuri's skepticism wavered as he bagged the items, his mind racing. This changes things," he muttered, glancing at Rustem, who stood sentinel-like as if guarding the truth. Back in the courtroom, tension gripped the air. Yuri returned, presenting the evidence to Judge Anton. The memory card, when accessed, revealed grainy footage from a hidden camera in the forest, a video showing Sofia alive days after her supposed death, arguing with a shadowy figure who wasn't Alexei. The bottle contained traces of the same accelerant used to burn the body, but its fingerprints didn't match Alexei's. The condoms hinted at another person's presence, a lead previously ignored. Gasps echoed as the implications sank in. Ivan Mikhailov, Sofia's father, clutched his chest, his certainty crumbling. Alexei's eyes welled up, not for himself, but for Rustem, who had carried his hope through the storm. Judge Anton, his voice trembling, addressed the court. "This evidence casts significant doubt on the conviction. The court orders an immediate investigation into these findings." He looked at Rustem, now sitting calmly by Alexei's side. "This dog has done what no one else could." The room erupted in whispers, some in awe, others in disbelief, as Rustem's loyalty unraveled a truth buried in Snowfield's frozen heart. The courtroom in Snowfield was a crucible of raw emotion, its wooden walls seeming to pulse with the weight of the unfolding truth. Rustem sat by Alexei Morozov's side, his steady presence a quiet anchor as the new evidence was presented. The plastic bottle, used condoms, and memory card, unearthed by Rustem's relentless determination, had been sent for forensic analysis overnight. Detective Yuri Belov, his earlier skepticism replaced by grim resolve, took the stand to deliver the findings. The condoms, tested in the lab, bore DNA that didn't match Alexei's. A murmur rippled through the gallery, but it was the memory card's contents that would shatter the room's fragile calm. Yuri inserted the card into a secure laptop, projecting its footage onto a screen. The grainy video flickered to life, revealing a horrific scene in the forest. Sofia, alive days after her supposed death, was there, along with 2 other young women, their faces etched with terror. A biker gang, their leather jackets emblazoned with a snarling wolf, surrounded them. The men's tattoos, skulls, snakes, and daggers, were unmistakable, as were their faces caught in chilling clarity. Victor, a hulking figure with a scarred cheek, and Slava, lean and menacing, led the group. The footage captured their brutality. Sofia and the others were assaulted, their screams muffled by the forest's indifference. before the gang doused them with accelerant and set them ablaze. The courtroom gasped, some turning away, others frozen in horror. Ivan Mikhailov, Sofia's father, clutched the bench, his face ashen as he watched his daughter's final moments. A sob tore from his throat, his earlier accusations against Alexei crumbling into guilt and grief. Yuri identified the bikers from police records. Victor and Slava, leaders of the Wolfpack gang, were known for their violent crimes across the region. Their faces, tattoos, and even the wolf emblem matched the video perfectly. The bottle's fingerprints tied back to Slava, and the accelerant matched the chemical used in the murders. The truth was undeniable. Sofia's death wasn't a lover's crime, but a savage act by predators who roamed Snowfield's shadows. The other two victims, later identified as missing women from nearby towns, deepened the tragedy, their families now facing the same gut-wrenching loss. Judge Anton Sokolov, his face carved with sorrow and resolve, rose to address the court. The room fell silent, every eye on him. "This evidence reveals a horrific miscarriage of justice," he said, his voice steady but thick with emotion. "Alexei Morozov, this court declares you innocent. You are free to go." The gavel struck, its echo a release of the chains that had bound Alexei. He exhaled, tears streaming down his face, and knelt to embrace Rustam, who licked his cheeks as if sensing the weight lifted. The gallery erupted, some in applause, others in quiet sobs. Ivan, broken, approached Alexei, his voice barely a whisper. "I was wrong. I'm so sorry." Alexei, his heart too full for anger, only nodded, clasping the older man's shoulder. As Alexei walked free, Rustam trotting proudly beside him, the town of Snowfield buzzed with the story of the dog who uncovered the truth. The bikers were arrested within days, their reign of terror ended by Rustam's unwavering loyalty. In the quiet of his cabin that night, Alexei sat by the fire, Rustam's head resting on his lap. "You saved me," he murmured, stroking the dog's fur. Outside, the snow fell softly, blanketing Snowfield in a fragile peace, as the memory of Sofia and the others lingered, their justice finally served. The hunt for Victor, Slava, and their Wolfpack gang ended in a derelict garage on the outskirts of Snowfield, where the stench of oil and fear hung heavy. Police, led by Detective Yuri Belov, stormed the hideout at dawn, their flashlights cutting through the gloom. Victor, his scarred face twisted in defiance, and Slava, sneering despite the cuffs, were dragged out alongside their crew. The tattoos that once marked their dominance now branded them as monsters. Evidence from Rustam's discovery, the memory card, the bottle, the DNA, had sealed their fate, leaving no room for escape. In the courtroom, a hush fell as Victor and Slava took the stand. The weight of the memory card's footage, played again for the jury, crushed any remnant of their bravado. Slava's voice, hollow and defeated, admitted their crimes. "We took the girls, Sofia and the others," he said, eyes downcast, "raped them, burned them to cover it up." Victor, colder, merely nodded, his confession a grunt of acknowledgement. The gallery recoiled, Ivan Mikhailov's anguished sob piercing the silence. The truth, raw and brutal, stripped the bikers of their power, leaving only the wreckage of their sins. Judge Anton Sokolov, his face a mask of righteous fury, delivered the verdict with unwavering resolve. Victor, Slava, and members of this gang, for the rape and murder of Sofia Petrova and 2 others, you are all sentenced to death. The gavel's strike was a thunderclap, met with gasps and scattered applause. Justice, though belated, was absolute. The courtroom seemed to exhale, the air lighter with the promise of retribution, a final release of Snowfield's collective grief. Alexei, seated with Rustam at his side, broke down, his tears falling freely as he wrapped his arms around the German shepherd. Rustam's warm fur soaked up his sobs, the dog's steady presence a reminder of the loyalty that had saved him. "We did it, boy," Alexei whispered, his voice choked with gratitude. As they left the courthouse, Snowfield's icy winds felt softer, the town's wounds beginning to heal through the justice served. In a quiet, rural village far from Snowfield's icy scars, Alexei Morozov and Rustam found a new home. The cabin, modest but warm, sat nestled among rolling hills, where wildflowers swayed in the breeze. The weight of the past lingered, but the tranquility of this place offered a gentle balm. Alexei, his stern face softened by peace, spent his days tending a small garden, Rustam ever by his side, chasing butterflies or napping in the sun. One evening, as the sky blazed with hues of orange and pink, Alexei sat on the porch. Rustam sprawled beside him. The air was thick with the scent of pine and promise. Stroking the German shepherd's fur, Alexei's voice trembled with gratitude. "You gave me back my life, friend," he murmured, his eyes glistening. Rustam, sensing the depth of his words, rested his head on Alexei's shoulder, a quiet vow of loyalty unbroken. Far beyond the horizon, the sun dipped low, painting the world in golden light. A new day waited to dawn, carrying hope for a man and his dog, bound forever by love and truth. Do you also think that loyalty can never be defeated? If so, like the video, share it, and subscribe to our channel, Wild Wonders. We will continue to bring you such true, heart-touching stories.